Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome to episode number 6 of Metal Raps. My name is Mitch Joel, and we're here as always with one-on-one with Mitch Lafon's Mitch Lafon. Mitch, how's it going?
Good, good. Always great to do this.
Good, and also as well with Talking Metal's Mark Strigl. Mark, how goes?
Good, goes good.
And
Good. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say we've got so many great topics that's why we're just excited. We just want to jump in.
We have to dive right in. I mean, I'm dying to ask Mark all about what it was like to go see the Ace Frehley solo concert, but I'm going to hold back. Let's talk a little bit about Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose, reunion rumors. Mark, starting with you. You're the one who brought this up. What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's the big question. What is going on? Because there's this strange silence going on, and it has caused the message boards and rumor mills to just kind of light up with speculation. There is people thinking that once again, maybe there is enormous money on the table for a reunion, and we've heard people like Eddie Trunk. We've heard people like Mitch Lafon on his Facebook page hint that maybe the time is now. The time for a reunion is more likely to happen now than it was two years ago. And I think that's exactly what Eddie Trunk said. 2 years ago, he would have guessed that it could never, ever happen. But now he's hearing things that make it sound like maybe there is some talk going on. We saw Duff McKagan kind of fall temporarily back into the fold with Axl playing, I don't know, 10 live dates or something, maybe 4 or 5 months back. And maybe Duff is the guy who could bring everybody back together. I don't know, but I'm real curious, and I'm always excited by anything Guns N' Roses related. And I don't know. I wanted to ask Mitch Lafon, who hinted on his Facebook page about this.
Well, listen, in the position I'm in, I hear a lot of rumors. Some turn out to be true. Some are just completely nonsense. But I've been hearing for months now about this 2016 Use Your Illusion Guns N' Roses reunion tour with Gilby and Matt and Duff and, of course, Slash and all that. And I kept thinking, well, no, that's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. And then this year, the new Guns N' Roses sort of dissipated. You know, Bumblefoot went off and did something, and DJ Asball went back to 6 a.m., and all of a sudden the touring stopped, and you go, okay, that's kind of strange. Why would they suddenly stop? And, of course, Duff comes back, and, there's all kinds of signs that are pointing to this, oh, well, could it be? Maybe. And I've asked people that I know and that know the band and so on and so forth, and the answers go from 2 years ago, like Eddie Trunk was saying, which is no, not a chance, to you never know what could happen. You're like, well, wait a minute, you never know what could happen is not no, and so it's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see something going on in 2016.
Is it that you guys, and I say you guys because I'm not at all excited by this or not at all turned on by this, but is it because the fans would be excited by this? I wonder if it's sort of a done deal. I got the feeling that Axl waited so long and then came out with this, real band, hit the road, modicum of success. This was not anything that people would call a massive success. Maybe he stopped touring simply because he realized, life on the road it wasn't as much fun as he remembered it when he couldn't really remember it.
Right.
Right. Slash seems somewhat busy with Miles Kennedy. I wouldn't say that it seems set. It does feel to me when I watch those videos on YouTube of Slash's work with Miles Kennedy, there is a GNR slant there that comes out more and more than his previous solo stuff, which leads me to believe that there might be some sort of desire on Slash's part to make this happen. Maybe Slash is getting tired of playing smaller venues. But the bigger question that I have is, will the audience be there? Will there really be an audience that would want to see this just because? And I think at the end of the day, we're really just talking about the fact that it really would be Axl and Slash. No offense to Duff. I mean, I think that Duff is still an integral part of that as well. I don't know, guys. I just don't know that even if they said, yeah, we're back and we're doing this, that there would be the care. I think it would have to be a triple, quadruple bill to even come close to filling an arena.
Wow.
And I don't even know if the days of yours would pull it back.
Well,
I think it would be a huge sellout.
Yeah, I think it would be stadiums, and I think there would be hundreds of millions of dollars on the table to do a tour of that original lineup or semi-original lineup.
Well, I've heard the illustrious $1 billion mark as an offer. Now, listen, at best this is conjecture because we're not there, but I've been in this long enough that when certain people start talking, I know that I have to believe them. So 2016 could be a very interesting year if you're a Guns N' Roses fan. And yeah, it's going to be way beyond arenas. I mean, it's certainly stadiums in South America and perhaps Australia and those kind of markets. Definitely sold out arenas across North America.
I don't see that guy. I think I mean, you guys are really bullish on this. I just can't imagine these guys playing a 50, 60,000 seaters. I just can't see it. I think it's been not only too long, I just think the work has been too disparate in between. I can't imagine that. I'm sort of really shocked sitting here thinking that you guys really believe these guys will be able to do stadiums.
Well, Eddie Trunk said he believes they could do stadiums to start off and then go to, arenas doing numerous nights in most cities.
Wow,
that's what he thought. So
the power of Axl and Slash. It's amazing though. Think about it this way though. Think about the power of Axl and Slash together, and then think about the powerlessness of them apart. Yeah. I mean, they couldn't fill arenas when they were Guns N' Roses without Slash, and Slash clearly on his own is playing clubs.
Well, they could though in certain towns. I mean, I saw Guns N' Roses post Slash probably 20 times, and in North Jersey, they could almost sell out an arena, 20,000 seats. And every time they sold out in New York City. So
true.
I know in Los Angeles they sold out too, but then I had heard, in Columbus, Ohio and stuff that they couldn't even get half the seats filled.
It's so crazy to me. I think back to, obviously, the seminal year for me was 1987 and Appetite for Destruction. Mm-hmm. And, my disappointment with the Use Your Illusion albums and as they became sort of more mainstream was, I'm a mainstream sort of rock guy. I mean, I really do like the pop metal and stuff, but there was something about Guns N' Roses. I'm specifically thinking about how much to shreds I tore a VHS version of Live at the Ritz in New York. And, I saw them more times than I can count, interviewed them more times than I could probably count, and just watching them sort of try to make things bigger and bigger and bigger. And my personal interest just waned more and more. I yearned for the days of just the 4 or 5 of them on stage tearing it up. That would be for me the best.
Have you interviewed Axl, by the way?
It's funny because when we were prepping for the show, I was trying to. I can't remember. Does that tell you something about my life? I've interviewed them many times, and if I did interview Axl, it wasn't one-on-one. It was probably him and Slash or him and someone else.
Right.
It feels like I might have, but I could not confirm and or deny.
Yeah, because I mean, I've interviewed the Guns N' Roses guys, Slash and Duff and Gilby and all that stuff, but nowhere near Axl. To me, Axl just doesn't talk. Well,
he's only
doesn't
done
talk in general.
He's done 2 interviews basically within the last 3, if you include the first time he was on Eddie Trunk, which was more of a guest appearance. But he did.
Well, it was more of a call-in.
Yeah, I mean, he did the 2 Eddie Trunk interviews. He did the Jimmy Kimmel interview, and then he's done some kind of like interviews with Del James that they panned off as interviews. So there's only been the amount of interviews with Axl in the last 20 years. You could probably count on both hands.
One hand, probably.
It's probably one hand, yeah.
It also speaks to a pre-Twitter and social media era, which I sort of miss and lament at the same time. This sort of mystery of the lead singer. Now it's like everyone's expected to tweet and share on Instagram. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I live and breathe that world, but I do somewhat miss the mystery of like there'd be an article in Circus Magazine. You'd be like, where's Axl? I always love that when certain artists, and Axl was one of them. He just had a real good vibe to him that you wanted that sort of mystery to linger. But, with all that, what I find most interesting is, and it's really timely as well, is Mark Cantor wrote a great biography called Reckless Road that came out in 2007, which was, basically him spending a ton of time with Slash, who's a friend of his. Mark Cantor, actually, for those who are interested, he actually does own Cantor's Deli in LA, which is his thing, but grew up with Slash. And so he was there through that whole process and watched him become rock stars. It was just announced that they're going to be turning his book Reckless Road into a biopic, and I guess all of the interesting diatribes online are about, well, is this going to be like that sort of cheesy Def Leppard one that was done with a bunch of nobodies, or is this going to be like a real sort of biopic? And of course he's claiming this is going to be all A-listers and stuff like that, and I guess the amusing part of this would be to try and figure out who should be cast as who in this mess.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I will say one last thing on Axl before we move on, that the press deemed that the whole Chinese democracy thing is such a failure, and it was a disgrace. And I'm not talking about the quality of the music, which I personally thought was good. However, it did sell close to 250,000 copies its first week, and that, of course, the press deemed a failure. Whereas just this week, the Foo Fighters came out and sold about the same. Actually less, and that was a big smashing success. Yeah. So I do think the press just don't like Axl without Slash by his side, and target him for.
Well, I think Mark. But to be fair, there's also probably some sort of sentiment around this idea that people bought it off of the sort of curiosity factor versus when you're the Foo Fighters, you're buying it off of the fan factor. I mean, it's been so long, the gap between Chinese democracy and who knows what was before it, right? Yeah. And that I think what they were trying to say is that you would think for a band of that size and stature finally coming back, it would push so much more. I mean, Foo Fighters have been consistently releasing stuff for a while. And also, let's not forget that as the years go on, and even though it's only been a couple years in between those two releases, the Chinese Democracy and the new Foo Fighters, the industry continues to change dramatically. Like, streaming is way more relevant than it was even a year ago. So I'm not trying to defend them, and I think you're right about journalists. I just think that based off of the fact that this was the long lost Guns N' Roses album that, again, you guys claim these guys will sell at stadiums for, it's surprising that was really all the interest, and it nosedives after that.
He did zero press. If he would have done press, and there would have been a big campaign and machine behind it, he could have doubled that number.
But
however, he chose not to.
In the room, though, it was a Best Buy only release, and the Best Buys in Canada didn't have it. And if you go to the States, Best Buy is in major markets. There's no, I went over to upstate New York and stuff. There was no Best Buy in Messina, New York. People there could not purchase it. So had it been actually released like the Foo Fighters now on Amazon and through all normal retailers, that 250 probably would have been 400 or 500. So there was also the factor that it was just not viable for a large portion of the population.
Hey, I thought we'd switch topics and talk a little bit about AC/DC. And, this whole Phil Rudd thing has been, it's been played out in the media, and it's sort of a strange thing with now most charges being dropped against the drummer and things like that. What I found most interesting about this is that we've seen similar things take place in Canada. We had a very well-known radio personality, John Gomeshi, accused of all sorts of stuff with women, and everybody dropped him from the bands he was managing to the CBC, which is the national broadcaster, to his manager. It's been with him forever.
His book, to every publishing house.
But what happened at the beginning is people stood by him, and it was just sort of you're innocent until proven guilty. What I found really interesting about the AC/DC story is that, boy, did the guys take a tough stance on this guy. I mean, they were basically like, he's got to figure stuff out. This is not the guy we knew. I mean, they did not stand by their brother at all in this scenario. Right. And I was wondering what you guys thought of that side of the media circus, not whether or not the guy's guilty or innocent.
I think they saw it coming, because even though they claim they didn't, and they saw it play out in the media just like everyone else, a month earlier, they mysteriously decided to shoot a video without him, and they also did press photos and promo photos without him. So it seems as though he was already kind of on their shit list.
Yeah, and they were quick to announce that the tour was going on without him. I mean, who has a bandmate that's injured, in jail, having difficulties, and right away your first press release is, we're going on without him? I mean, I don't think. I think that what happened probably was more of a relief to them, more like, oh, thank God we don't have to deal with him. This must have been brewing for years. I mean, you don't become Phil Rudd at his advanced age and then suddenly develop, a need for hookers and drugs and all kinds of stuff. This must have been, hitmen. I mean,
the minor part that Mitch left out there, right? Yeah.
Well, alleged hitmen, so that we're covered legally. But, this must have been 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the making, and you sort of just keep a lid on it and go, shh, just get on the bus, let's do the tour. And now it comes out and you go, oh, all right, forget it. Or, bye, Phil.
We talk about this a lot, actually, both on the show and just when we're hanging out. This sort of thing where we're all such fans of the music, and it's hard to watch them get old. It's hard to watch them get a little too crazy. I mean, when I think about AC/DC as more of, you guys are way more fanatical than I am now. I consider myself way more of a passive music fan now. And I think about just like when I zoom out 30,000 feet, I think about, Malcolm Young and dementia, and then I think about this, and I think about the pictures when you see how sort of oldish they look, and
right.
It's hard as a music fan to realize that a band like AC/DC, which by the way I think could play stadiums, will, that like it's sort of like, are we coming to I hate to say this, but it feels like we're coming to the end of something. Not that like, oh, they're back and there's just like the Stones and they're just going to keep going. It feels like endy-ish, and it makes me upset.
Yes, I agree. I think we're getting to that point with a lot of the bands that we grew up with, the Kiss and the Aerosmith and the Cheap Tricks and AC/DC, where the gas tank is just about on empty.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
I just don't see the relevance of Kiss going into 2017 or 2018. I don't see Steven Tyler going further. I think the new generation is going to take over, and your Black Veil Brides are going to fill the gaps for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and the bands that we grew up loving, well, we'll have to go back to the album that we bought when we were 12 and just listen to it over and over and over again.
It sounds like the three of us are going to have to hit one of those cruises soon.
An AC/DC cruise could be fun. Apparently, there'd be all kinds of hookers and booze. So,
and alleged hitmen.
Alleged hitmen, yeah. So maybe they should cruise.
The one question I always think of with these bands like AC/DC, who the first time I saw them was 1985. By far I've seen hundreds and probably thousands of rock concerts. Yep. It was one of the top 3 concerts that I've ever seen. That was in 1985 on the Fly on the Wall tour.
Mark,
and I've seen
crazy. Go, keep going, and then I'm going to tell my crazy story. Go.
Yeah, but they've consistently gotten less energetic on stage, less powerful. They don't sound as good. I've been seeing them since 1985 every time they come through. And part of me wonders, would it have been better for some of these bands to, like Zeppelin, to just not try to do it again, leave the legacy at how great it was and not water it down and let the legacy get old. I mean, one of the reasons we think Marilyn Monroe is so beautiful, it's because we never got to see her grow old. And some of the best rock bands, I think the same thing goes for them, Jimi Hendrix or whatever, the Doors.
But look at B.B. King, look at Chuck Berry, look at some of those guys. They're still delivering the goods.
It's not the same.
I don't know about that, but Chuck Berry.
That's a perspective, but not mine. But Mark, speaking of, that's funny because when we were going down that road, I was trying to remember what was the best AC/DC show I ever saw, and it was also Fly on the Wall. But I'll tell you something interesting. I don't know if you remember this tour. This tour did not sell well at all. I mean, these hockey arenas and sort of, I guess for you guys it would be probably hockey arenas too in the States. They were like, 3/4. It was not a packed arena. In fact, I remember heading to the show. A very funny story. I was walking to the show, and a scalper pulled me over and said, "Hey, you need tickets to AC/DC?" I'm like, "No, I'm good." And he was like, "Hey, come on! Like they only come by every 6 months or so." It was like the joke because like they were touring so much, and there's the energy for the band, especially at that time, had sort of started to somewhat dwindle in that vein. But I'm with you. That was one of the best AC/DC shows I'd ever seen. So that's why my jaw dropped when you said, I'm like, what are the odds? So it turns out Mark and I are brothers from another mother. Who knew?
Yeah, there you go. And quickly on stadiums, there is rumors that there will be a 2015 stadium tour, and I think that's unfortunate. Bands and stadiums should not go together, especially in Montreal.
They don't want you to go close to them because then you'll see the truth. That's why they put them on stadium stages. I'm just kidding. I kid.
But just sonically, you can't hear anything. Maybe it's just because in Montreal, our Olympic Stadium is just so horrible for anything that you can't get an experience. But I just can't see how a stadium in Brazil with 100,000 people could be any better. It just doesn't sound right.
It smells open air to me. Last topic really quickly that I found super interesting this week while we're talking about all these iconic bands is Ozzy. I can't believe this. They're going to come back with the Osbournes. They're doing like a handful of shows. Sharon announced this. It won't be on MTV. It'll be on VH1, although it's owned by the same parent company. This is a show that really sort of broke the mold and actually set a trajectory, I really believe, for a whole bunch of different types of reality shows, not just music ones like Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, but just the whole genre of like being in people's lives and living rooms like that. And here they are trying to do it again. We're also in a world where reality TV has evolved so much. A lot of it is somewhat scripted or sort of story-based. Like, okay, it may not be reality because like this week we're going to go to a pet store and do all this sort of stuff or whatever. What do you guys? I'm sort of like I'm on the edge of my seat, going like I'm not sure which side I fall on this. On one side, I'm like I'd love to see Ozzy clean and doing his thing. On the other side, I'm like I don't know if I want to go back there. It's sort of like what you said. I remember it so well in my memory. It's a great moment in time. Mitch, what do you think?
Boy, it's really going to depend what they focus on. I mean, let's not forget that Jack, Ozzy's son, has MS, and so will they focus on just this is all going to be about this medical thing? Is it going to be scripted? Because the first season of the Osbournes we all loved. The ones that came after, we all went, oh, what is that? So can they catch that first season excitement again, or are we sort of all going to sit here and go, oh, I can hear the script turning, go to the next page? I don't know.
It's going to have to be scripted. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of excited by it, but like you said, it really was the springboard to all these other things. And we're talking from, Survivor to Amazing Race to all the stuff on Bravo. It sort of all came from the Osbournes. So
that stuff was a lot before, but I think more of the in-house reality shows, like the Real Housewives and stuff like that, really came out of that.
Yeah, that's in fact true. And I don't know. Maybe I'm a little too burnt out on all those kind of programs. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. Anything Ozzy's kind of cool. So
it's rubbernecking. Mark?
It's amazing that he's doing it for the past decade or more, talking about how he wished he would have never done it in the first place, and that it was a mistake, and that it was embarrassing, and that's not the real me, And then I did remember reading an interview with him where he said the power of television is amazing, and he said before he was on the Osbournes, he could. He would get noticed, but he could still go to ShopRite or to Kmart and buy some things and not need a team of security around him. But he said after that show, he really became a household name where grandmas were coming up to him and knew who he was, and it changed everything. So part of me wonders if, okay, he said he doesn't like doing it, so maybe he wants to come back in a sober state and do it that way and show people that side of him. However, it probably plays more into him gearing up for the end of his career here and getting some major exposure for what's coming up with Black Sabbath, the final tour, the final record, and probably right after that he'll do the same as the Ozzy solo artist, the end of that career.
Since we started the show with rumors, let me finish the show with rumors. I've heard that a Aussie Vegas residency is coming in 2015. So perhaps it's going to be to spark some interest in this Vegas residency. Who knows?
And full circle, because GNR did that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be there next week for next Saturday and Sunday for the KISS residency.
Oh, you're going?
I'll be there on Saturday for KISS, and then I'm going to see Red Dragon Cartel at the Count's Custom, or what is it? The Vamps.
Yeah, Vamps.
It's called. Yeah, I'm going to see them.
You give the singer in Red Cartel, Darren, a big hug from me. We go back to the Harem Scarum days together.
Oh, excellent. We'll do.
Yeah. Hey, before we skip out, I thought what I would do is just ask each of you really quickly what you're listening to, what's sort of been turning your crank this week. Mitch, what have you been listening to? What's been big on your list?
Oh, wow. I have just been overtaken by this band called Gothard out of Sweden.
You're still on that.
Out of Switzerland, I should say. Yeah. And I've been listening to Jeff Scott Soto's latest project called Wet, W.E.W.T. They have 3 albums, and I've been listening to a lot of that. And then I've been doing some show prep for One-on-One. I've been listening to Savile Row that Troy Luccketta of Tesla put out, Heat, that features Eric Grunwald, who was a Swedish Idol winner back in 2009. So, yeah, I'm still very much into the Gothard thing. They have so much music over the last 20 years that I never really listened to, so I'm sort of cramming 20 years into 3 months. And, of course, the new Moist.
Oh, good. Mark, what are you listening to?
Bruce Boyer, formerly of Racer X and Scream, has a great new solo record out, all instrumental. And, it's got the heavy metal side to it, but it, branches out over into jazz fusion and neoclassical and stuff too. It's called the Order of Control, instrumental record, Bruce Boyer. Great stuff. Loving that. Ronnie Monroe has a new record out, the former singer of Metal Church, called Electric Wake, which is also quite good. Those are 2 heavy metal records I'm currently digging.
Mark's diving deep. I'll tell you what caught my attention. I do a ton of music streaming on both RDO and Spotify, and I came across Night Ranger, 24 strings and a drummer, live and acoustic. And I got to tell you, it's been I've been sneaking back to it every other day, going, what is it about this album? I always loved the band. I always thought they were great. I think songs like Goodbye and Sister Christian, still, as much as that one was overplayed, are just great, and they sound amazing. These guys, they can just sing and still kill it. And that's been my pick of the week. So more mellow than the other 2. Hey guys, thanks so much for doing this. We'll be back with Metal Raps number 7 really, really soon. Until then, my name is Mitch Joel. You can always find me at Mitch Joel on Twitter. Mark and Mitch, I'll start off with Mark. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, talkingmetal.com, and we're on Facebook. My personal Facebook is facebook.com/mstrigl. That's MSTRIGL.
Mitch?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, and of course Facebook is facebook.com/Mitch.Lafon. So join me. A lot of fun conversation going on in both places.
And we'll catch up with everyone else soon with another episode of Metal Raps. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.